I would say almost evil like in nature, because like even when I would watch certain horror movies, you can feel like a demonic presence with some of the movies.
Demon possession, seances, witches or spells, or
if someone is trying to decide if they can watch horror movies, I'd encourage them to reflect if horror movies bring them to a place of any weakness.
This is the reality of what you watch through Hollywood, what you watch on TV.
And if you want my opinion as an exorcist, an unsuspecting individual can get demons from watching terrifying flicks.
Hi, and welcome to another installment of Soul and Scriptures. In this episode, we're exploring the hidden dangers behind horror movies and the spiritual implications they carry. Many people see these films as mere entertainment, but as you'll see from these testimonies, the reality is far more serious. Our first story comes from the Almost False podcast, where an ex-ghost hunter shares how his obsession with horror movies led him into real-life encounters with the supernatural. What started as a fascination turned into something far more dangerous. His experience raises the question, what are we really inviting into our lives when we engage with these films?
Like what really got me into the paranormal was I was a big fan of the movie like Paranormal Activity, like that franchise. Like I would watch the movies all the time and stuff. And I had this one friend at school and his name was Alex. And he told me that his house was haunted by a guardian angel. And he would show me videos of like a door moving by itself and like holy water spilling over. And we were going to go to his house to watch a Paranormal Activity movie. I wasn't expecting to actually live a Paranormal Activity experience at that time because we walked out. So it was pretty much after school, we got to his house. None of his family was home. But when we got to the front door of his house, the whole living room was messed up. Like stuff was on the ground. It was messed up. So he thought somebody broke in. So he grabs a metal bat and we're walking around his whole house. And once we reached the backyard, there was nobody there. But right when we turned around, like as hard as it could, this demon slammed this door as hard as it could. And it was like right then and there, I knew the spiritual realm was real. I was literally willing to run all the way home, but we just stayed and watched Paranormal Activity still. I don't know how that still happened. When I went home to my house, supernatural and paranormal stuff started to happen. And this stuff never happened before that experience. So I knew whatever demonic spirit or whatever, spirit that was, it did come with me, to my house, because this demonic spirit, it would give me a feeling like I was being watched like all the time at night. My parents, they were worried mostly about the horror movie obsession because like I would watch horror movies with my parents and then like I would show my mom like a very like bloody horror movie. And then she kind of got the feeling like, how can he like this? Like, why is he paying a lot of attention to this? And I was getting super obsessed with them, like to the point where like every single day I wanted to watch a horror movie. Just like me as a Christian now, my mind's on Jesus all the time. But during this time, it was horror movies almost like all the time. My obsession for horror movies, like with the occult stuff, they both started to grow rapidly. Like right when I entered high school, like I was like, I wanted to be a horror movie actor. I used to wear like a Freddy Krueger sweater to school. Like I used to wear horror movie shirts all the time. And even just the house that I was living in, it started looking like a horror movie museum because a lot of horror movie collectibles, objects, and that stuff started to come in. So I would say around this time, it was starting to be a very unhealthy obsession with horror movies where it would be what I would want it to talk about like as much as I can. And I would go to like around this time too, I would go to like horror movie conventions also and watch horror movies in theaters, just horror movie, literally anything at this time. I would want to do it. When I would watch horror movies and stuff, I would actually get ideas from the horror movies planted in my mind. So for example, if something like demonic or not so good happened in a horror movie, it would be lingering in my mind. Wouldn't you like to try that? Like, it was kind of like giving ammo in my mind with those seeds planted. It was like bad seeds planted in my mind. So all the darkness I would watch from horror movies, it would actually start to show my personality where I would start to get more anxiety. I would start to get more angry and I would even say just more like, I would say almost evil like in nature, because like even when I would watch certain horror movies, you can feel like a demonic presence with some of the movies, which I also believe that horror movies could be an open door for demons, which I've experienced that also. So there was this one time particular, I went with my mom to watch the movie Hereditary in theaters, and Hereditary is a really, really demonic movie. And I remember coming out of the movie just feeling so much dread in me, just so weird. And I would have other encounters like with the movie Midsommar. Me and my dad watched it, and during the movie, we heard knocks on the door and there was nobody there. So these movies would actually invite in activity around, and I've had multiple experiences of that with those movies. I also believe the horror movies were a big influence for me to get into haunted objects. Like it was the horror movies and like the paranormal YouTube videos. And I would literally like go on eBay and like type in haunted doll for sale or haunted this for sale. And I would just start buying stuff in. So at this time, when I collected one of my first haunted objects, it was like a clown doll. And I would put the K2 meter, the spirit equipment next to it. And I would literally talk to it, and it would move the meter and stuff. So the spirits would actually literally communicate using the dolls also, which was pretty crazy. During this time, like the anxiety I felt was so bad where I would just wear a hoodie and just try to be very distant. I liked my alone time at this time. Felt depressed, anxiety, rejection. I mean, pretty much everything not good somebody can feel. I was feeling it. But when I would watch horror movies and I would be into this stuff, I would get an adrenaline rush of excitement. So it was like that excitement was coping with all the other stuff I was feeling. When I would watch like Chucky and stuff and just like horror movies, I used to like actually love watching people like, get killed in horror movies because I liked the special effects and I thought it was like really cool. Like there was this one night I was watching the movie. It was House of Dracula with my mom. It's like a classic Universal Monsters movie. And out of nowhere, I felt so convicted watching it. And then I believe the Holy Spirit told me this was made by the devil. Even though it looks innocent, there's no blood, there's not that much cussing in it. It's really, if you're looking at it as like a movie, it's really, in my opinion, not the worst thing. But still, the origin is ultimately demonic.
Now, let's hear from the All for Jesus YouTube channel, which takes a biblical stance on why Christians should steer clear of horror movies. The Bible reminds us in 2 Timothy 1:7 that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind. So why willingly expose ourselves to fear? Let's listen.
Let's just talk for a minute about some of the movies that are out there nowadays, and as Christians, why we should not be engaging in them. First of all, let's talk specifically about the horror films or scary movies, why it's not good for Christians to be watching these kinds of movies. First of all, the multitude of them have to do with demonic things, demon possessions, seances, witches or spells, or some kind of evil spiritual side of it. First of all, we should not be entertaining any of that as a form of entertainment or liking to be scared. The Bible says we were not given a spirit of fear, okay? The other part of this is you're letting that stuff into your house. You're letting this kind of evil spirit kind of entertainment into your house, and then you wonder why you feel certain ways and you're dealing with certain things within your home. Well, it's because you're letting these kinds of things in. Do not be fooled. Don't watch those kinds of movies.
Fear is a gateway. If horror movies bring fear into your life, they may be bringing more than just a thrill. But if you need more confirmation, Bob Larson, known as the real exorcist, makes his position crystal clear. Horror movies are demonic. Period. No justification. No compromise. He even calls out those who defend the genre, warning that fear itself is a gateway for demonic influence. Let's hear what he has to say.
Horror movies are demonic. Period. Case closed. End of discussion. But I was shocked recently to read an article of one of the most respected Christian evangelical publications. The writer said, quote, "Paranormal horror manifests the unseen reality of spirits and demons beyond my control," end of quote. What is he saying? He's a Christian and he finds demons beyond his control. Well, maybe that's the problem right there. Then he moves on to note that some Christians, quote, "make compelling defenses for the genre," close quote. Well, I'd like to meet those Christians and tell them they likely need an exorcism. But here's the kicker. The article states, quote, horror can speak to the supernatural reality of the world, demonstrate the power to overcome evil, and become an evangelistic tool to reach unbelievers, close quote. Well, I want to ask, what planet is this guy living on? And then he adds that a potential benefit of horror is to help us discern what is truly good and evil. Whatever happened to 1 Thessalonians 5:22? Abstain from every form of evil. You might think that would include the horror in Netflix's Wednesday series, featuring an actress who gets even by putting live piranhas into a swimming pool, or the demonic savagery of Tim Burton's Edward Scissorhands. And what about Philippians 4:8, where Paul commands us to meditate on things which are true, noble, just, pure, lovely, and of a good report? Well, try doing that while watching Psycho, Halloween, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or Scream 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if you want my opinion as an exorcist, I can speak from ministry experience that an unsuspecting individual can get demons from watching terrifying flicks. We are clearly instructed in 2 Timothy 1:7 that God has not given believers the spirit of fear, and forget some new translations that turn that word fear into timidity. Fear is a demon. I call it a gateway demon because if you have fear, every other kind of evil spirit can enter through the door that the demon of fear opens. Hebrews 11:6 says that without faith you can't please God. So guess who you are pleasing when you deliberately submit yourself to the endorphin rush from the terror of horror films?
Even when horror movies don't outright depict the demonic, they can still weaken us spiritually. And when we lack spiritual discipline, we become easy targets. So, where does that leave Christians who feel conflicted? The next clip lays out a biblical framework for evaluating whether horror movies are okay for Christians.
So when it comes to horror movies, there can be quite the debate between Christians. Some Christians believe that anything horror-related is wrong and should be avoided because it's connected to demons or death. And others believe that it's fiction. So long as what's being consumed is understood to be not real, then people are free to enjoy it. Whether you're someone that's trying to figure that out, here are 4 steps that should help you reach a conclusion on what you should or should not do. Step number 1, understand the reality of demons. Matthew chapter 8, verses 28 to 29. When he, Jesus, had come to the other side to the country of the Gergesenes, there met him 2 demon-possessed men coming out of the tombs, exceedingly fierce, so that no one could pass that way. And suddenly they cried out saying, "What have we to do with you, Jesus, you Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time?" In this passage, Jesus just crossed the sea and he and his disciples came across 2 demon-possessed men. And later in the passage, Jesus cast the demons out of the men. So to begin this conversation of whether Christians should watch horror movies, I need everyone to understand that demons and the devil are in fact real. And a huge issue that I have with certain horror movies is that they play around too much with reality. And biblically speaking, Satan and demons are bloodthirsty spiritual entities that are physically more powerful than people. Step number 2, understand what's fiction. John chapter 17, verse 17. Sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth. In this passage, Jesus is talking to God, and he, in his prayer, asks God the Father to set his people apart by his truth. And then Jesus says that God's word is truth. And truth here means reality, or that which is real. And I don't think it's wrong to dabble in things that aren't true. So let me explain. Both C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien were believers in God who wrote fantasy stories. C.S. Lewis in the Chronicles of Narnia, and Tolkien with his Lord of the Rings series. They both loved God, believed in him, and in both their stories, full of magic, dragons, and dark forces, were a lot of themes that were from Christian theology. And honestly, I think we as people do love to express our creativity through made-up worlds and ideas from fantasy. But the point I'm making when it comes to watching horror movies is the idea that people who do decide to watch them should understand what is true and what is fiction. For example, one concept that's thrown around a lot in horror movies are ghosts. Biblically speaking, there's no such thing as ghosts. People, when they die, either go to heaven or to Hades. So any spiritual being on earth is either one of God's holy angels or a demon that's posing as a deceased human. But that's only one side of the whole horror movie debate. There is another side. So look at step number 3. Understand what will hurt your conscience. 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verses 5-7. There may be so-called gods both in heaven and on earth, and some people actually worship many gods and many lords. But we know that there is only one God, the Father, who created everything, and we live for him. And there's only one Lord, Jesus Christ, through whom God made everything and through whom we have been given life. However, not all believers know this. Some are accustomed to thinking of idols as being real. So when they eat food that has been offered to idols, they think of it as the worship of real gods, and their weak consciences are violated. So with that point in mind, I have some points that I'd like to mention here. My personal opinion, I think horror is a fictional genre of entertainment. And in the same way that people can partake of food because they know there's no other gods, then I think that if there's a scary monster in a movie, it's okay for Christians to dive into a world that they know is not real. However, pay attention to how Paul called the conscience of certain Christians weak. And levels of strength is something that's seen a lot in the Bible. Jesus was in a state of greater weakness when Satan tempted him in the wilderness. And Elijah, when running for his life from Queen Jezebel, was in a place of emotional weakness. So as an application point, I would also add that if a horror movie puts someone's mind in a state of weakness, then it would not be wise for them to watch it. So to make things concise, if someone is trying to decide if they can watch horror movies, I'd encourage them to reflect if horror movies bring them to a place of any weakness. Because if a horror movie would leave you fearful or anxious, or if your mind starts getting consumed with that imaginary world to the point where all they think about is that world, then I would probably say it's unwise for them to watch it. Step number 4, understand that people do have a choice. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19. Today I've given you the choice between life and death, between blessings and curses. Now I call on heaven and earth to witness the choice you make. Oh, that you would choose life so that you and your descendants might live. So what I want you to understand is that people have a choice. God gave Adam and Eve the choice to obey him in the Garden of Eden, and people today have the choice to put their faith in Jesus so that they can spend an eternity with him. So should Christians watch horror movies? My quick answer, if it has demons, I would suggest that you don't watch it because people should not open themselves up to the demonic realm because it does exist. Also, if the movie brings you to a place of sin or of fear, then I would also suggest that you don't watch it. And if what you're watching brings you to a place of any weakness, then I would also say don't watch it.
It ultimately comes down to wisdom and discernment. If a movie leads to fear, spiritual weakness, or sinful thoughts, it's best to avoid it. The Bible gives us the freedom to choose, but also the wisdom to choose rightly. Speaking of choices, did you know that some horror movies choose to use real spells and rituals? You don't have to take our word for it. Listen to what Hollywood insiders have to say.
I'm going to prove to you in this video that what you watch can actually open you up to demonic spirits. A lot of you think movies and music don't have power. The lady we're going to hear from is a writer for Vampire Diaries and the show The Originals, which was on Disney. It's a vampire show. And I know a lot of people like, Isaiah, these shows are not demonic. Nothing can happen. They're just about vampires and blood and death and all that type of stuff. But listen to what she says about when they wrote the show, how they were using actual spells. So don't take it from me because you guys think I'm all super spiritual. Take it from her. Listen to what she says here. It's a bit hard to hear because it's filmed on a phone, but I'll kind of talk as we go here. Listen to this.
I want to ask you this, because I say this at conventions a lot, this rumor that I heard, and I want to know if it's true. There's a rumor that production was called by
the
real witches of New Orleans saying you're playing with fire and you got to change up your chants to... It's true?
Okay, so the rumor is, I know it's hard to hear, so I'll translate, that witches called production of The Originals, the show The Originals about vampires, and said, you're playing with fire because you guys are using actual spells, actual incantations, which if you don't know, invoke demonic spirits. And this is the screenwriter. This is the lady writing the scripts. Listen to what she says here. Very important.
So in season 1, when I was the writer's assistant, I wrote the chants. And I would go online and like look up spells. It was like, why not? And then I'd like change a couple words.
So when she's writing the script of this, what she's saying is she would go look up spells, actual spells, and then change a couple words.
I'd like figure out a spell, and I'd like go and change a couple words to French and a couple words to like Creole, a couple words.
Oh, she would just change the words to another language, so she wasn't even changing the words.
Haitian Creole. You can do Google
Get why it's
Translate.
difficult.
You can do Google Translate to Haitian Creole, and then I'd like throw some Latin in. And I was just like making some spells, and then we got a call from a woman in New Orleans who was like, I think that you're playing with fire. I think that you're, what are you trying to do? You're putting these spells in everybody's living room all across America.
I want you to note what she just said. A witch said, what are you doing? You're putting spells in living rooms of everybody in America. You're invoking demons. This is what she's saying. You're invoking demons into every home in America through the show, which the show was on Disney for a while. And listen to her response to it.
Like we were like cursing everybody to watch the show.
She said, you're cursing people who watch it. The witch said that. You're cursing people that watch it. Listen to the crowd and everybody.
And then I started making...
They're laughing. They think it's a joke. And the reason why they think it's a joke is because they're ignorant to the spiritual realm. They don't know how real this is.
A little weirder.
And everybody starts laughing. So she said, so what I did was I made it a little bit weirder. This is the reality of what you watch through Hollywood, what you watch on TV.
That's no coincidence. These spells and rituals are not just fiction. They have power. And when they're played in homes across the world, they invite darkness in ways many don't even realize. What we consume matters. Horror movies may seem like harmless fun, but the spiritual realm is real, and the enemy is always looking for a way in. Make sure your entertainment honors God and strengthens your spirit. Stay strong in your faith, be vigilant, and remember, follow Jesus. Until next time, this is Soul and Scriptures. God bless.